Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of our weekly American Mussar community gathering. We had a absolutely fantastic exploration of truth last week, and a couple things came up which actually inspired the direction of this week's gathering. And I suspect we were probably going to go 3 or 4 weeks on truth because there's just an awful lot here. It's very timely. I think we can go very deep. So I invite you to relax and close your eyes. We'll begin, as we always do, by opening our sacred space with a meditation. So take in a breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. As you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. And Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. And Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, hello, Beth. Welcome. Well, friends, here we are for our second week exploring truth. So I'm not even going to bring up my slide because the question is really simple. How did the truth show up for you in the last week? Good chunk of you were here, and if you weren't, you could talk about maybe how Musar has shown up in your life. Um, who would like to share first? Okay, I saw Sue, and then we'll have Martin.
Okay, I wanted to share, Greg, in your email, there was a line in there that really hit home a story that I thought would be interesting about truth. Where it said that in your example, the person was holding some of how he felt out of fear on how the other people would react. So maybe not telling the truth because he was fearful. So the example I had of that, which is really, oh my gosh, that's kind of what happened to me. And it's kind of it's somewhat silly, but I was out yesterday and I was with a family with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we decided that we were going to go. They wanted to go out for ice cream to Culver's, and I said, "Sure, I'll go with you." And it was late-ish at night, and I had told the mom, I said, I'm probably not going to have any ice cream because it's late at night, and I'm watching my weight. And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I understand." So then we get there, and we're sitting with the kids, and the 4-year-old says to me, sees that I'm not eating any ice cream, and she asked me, "Well, how come you're not eating an ice cream?" And I respond, "Oh, they ran out." I mean, I totally lied. And I was I thought about that. Why did I say that? Why couldn't I just say, "Oh, I'm just not hungry," or "I didn't want any"? But I was fearful in a way, like she's going to look at me like, what, she doesn't like ice cream and she's not gonna, I mean, it was sort of an odd,
Hmm.
but that's what we're talking about, like when do you tell the truth and when do you lie?
Yeah.
And actually that lie was great. She didn't ask any questions. Oh, they ran out. Okay. You know.
Hmm.
But if I said, oh, I didn't want it, oh, she'd be like, oh, you don't like ice cream? And then,
Hmm.
so I had this fear of like disapproval or what I was doing
Hmm.
was not right. And that's why I lied. And it's somewhat a silly example, but I think it brings home the point of being fearful of what other people think rather than
Yeah.
giving my truth.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sue. And yeah, it's a small example, and in like the weight of the world, it doesn't like change anything particularly, but it's very instructive for yourself, for like, oh, there's something going on there, and there's some spiritual imbalance, which this just kind of shined the light on. And I love the example because when we catch ourselves in these small examples, it helps us make small corrections, and then small corrections make it easier when like the big situation comes up. So thank you for sharing that. Martin and then Gil.
One thing first from last week on acts of giving. About a month ago, I lost an envelope 40 miles away from my house. 2 days ago, I get an envelope mailed to my home address with the lost envelope.
Hmm.
What an act of kindness. So that I have the person's address, so they'll be getting a nice big thank you gift from
Hmm.
me. As far as telling the truth, I scratched my neighbor's car from my car. And I could have said, well, it could have been anyone and not say anything. I left a note and I paid for the repair. And then anyway, I felt a whole lot better for it. And so I just followed, I could have opted not to do it and it'd be fine. But I knew I'd be paying the price emotionally from then on. So anyway, so telling the truth helped improve a relationship and I personally feel better. So
That's good. Thank you so
a
much for
good,
sharing that,
a
Martin.
good thing to do. So good.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, I had the exact same thing happen. Like 2 weeks ago, I scratched somebody's car, I left a note, they called me, they were very appreciative. And it was when we were working on Chesed and loving kindness. And I was just realizing that was not like an act of Chesed. That was not going above and beyond. That was, if I don't do it, I would be a jerk. I would be doing the wrong thing. So, it's just sometimes, doing the right thing is good in and of itself. So, Gil, you're up next.
Um, yeah, it's interesting the two speakers before because um, with grandkids, I particularly answer everything in detail, truthfully, sometimes to the extent that my family makes fun of me. But anyway, um, so it's interesting because I focused on that list of the different kinds of liars, and my my reaction was how and your email about how you expend effort to figure out whether somebody's really telling you the truth or not, which particularly with artificial intelligence and how things can be manipulated is really becoming an issue now to know what really is true and what isn't true. And also with our political climate and each side trying to manipulate the truth, what's true and what isn't. And so I had an interesting experience working for Blue Shield of California. They hired a chief medical officer who I had spoken to in person, one of the few people in the company who did because she lives distance. And I looked her up and she was a podiatrist. And so when I met with her, I said, oh, you're a podiatrist, you went to whatever. And she said, no, I'm an osteopath, a doctor of osteopathy. And I said, oh, which was contrary to what I had looked up. And then when I got back on the train, because I had taken the train like 2 hours to see her, I looked her up and she wasn't listed on the medical board as an osteopath. Well, she goes on, she leads the company, and then all of a sudden it's discovered that she isn't, and she's fired abruptly. And I have continued to text her since then, and she is just the number one on the list. She just lies to the extent that in searching recently, she actually posted a fake obituary, and there are family members who posted comments about her always lying. And so I just the reaction of the people at the company, the woman who hired her, they're furious and they are so angry. And so it's just curious because it's like I don't think she's a very brilliant woman. I don't think she can help herself. I'm not quite sure why she does it, but I I I don't have that reaction. And so when you wrote that you're trying to tell the truth, figure out if people tell the truth or not, I'm just curious and curious for people's different reactions. When you find out that somebody actually isn't telling the truth for whatever reason, how do you react? And if it's the person who embellishes stories, I guess you turn around and you say, oh, well, he always tells a story, so we have to take that with a little grain of salt. But how about like number one, this person who lies as easily as breathing, and you know it? How do you react to that? And by the way, I have to leave at 25 after, so I jumped in at the beginning for that reason.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean that's an interesting question because that is almost we are focusing on our own selves and our own Mussar journey. And so, like, how we react to another person's weakness is an interesting question. And it might be, if we've been hurt by it, there might be one sort of reaction, and anger is certainly understandable. And I don't know if you're reacting with compassion, Gil, or what your like what is the soul trait that's active for you?
Just interest and curiosity, and um, why, what brought her to do that, and um, but I've interacted with her by text message since then, understanding that anything that she texts me back may be, some of it may be true and some of it may not, but more just kind of this is how she is, and do I want to continue to have any type of connection with her, and just being wary. But no, not anger, because I think people, as this list from the 1300s list, people have always been doing this.
Yeah. We'll hear from Beth, and then maybe we can get some more people's check-ins. Maybe that's what Beth is doing too. So Beth.
Um, for Gil, I was thinking, some people just are like compulsive liars. They just lie all the time. Obviously, this lady, she sounds like, was that the great imposter? And
Yeah.
I was thinking that Proverbs says to avoid an angry person. Um, and I wonder if avoiding a compulsive liar might be a good suggestion. Now, that's not from the scriptures. I won't say that's the word of God, but my reaction would be to be very cautious around them and avoid them if possible. Just my
Well,
2 cents.
yeah, I mean, it does say in the mantra, and it does say, distance yourself from a false matter. And I mean, that would be my reaction, is I would just probably distance myself from someone who is not truthful, because they would not be trustworthy, which is also in Proverbs. Susan.
Thank you. I was thinking about this a lot, because if we're talking about truth as an interpersonal issue, about who we lie to, and then who lies to us, and I was thinking about it from both points of view. So a very a dear and close relation of mine is pretty much a compulsive liar, which means she's not trustworthy to me. I can't trust what she says, verify. It's not even trust and verify, it's just verify. But I love her and won't eliminate her from my life. And so I'm aware of her pain and where her lying comes out of, but I'm also aware of the pain it causes me to not be able to trust someone who's so very close to me. And I think that's one side of it, when you're very close to someone who's lying to you. And then the other is to be discerning and say, I'm not going to reveal the whole truth to every single person I meet. That there are people with whom I will feel safe enough to reveal my whole truth. Or there are some people where I feel I can completely trust what they say to me, that there's this big spectrum. And a lot of it depends on how important somebody is in my life, how important it is that I'm my true self, or how important it is to keep them in my life if they are not being true.
Thank you, Susan. Shelley.
Hello. So my journey with truth for the last 3 weeks has been with God. And today I was given the gifts of God and recognizing that, we always have things happen for us. And in the 3 weeks, I've collected 6 different items equaling 6, which is its own message, I guess, in itself. And so it actually made me still sad for the fact that the person that I loved is gone on, but at the same time happy that he's there because he isn't in pain. And the interesting thing is 2 weeks before he passed away, he actually said, "Why do people cry when someone dies?" And I said, well, they're missing the person. Let's live in the present. And in regards to, I'm trying to find that guy's name that was just talking. I think you have to have compassion. Yeah. Because when it comes down to it, we've all been that person or stopped ourselves from being that person. And when you come across those people, it's recognizing to have compassion for them, to realize that they're scared and that's why they're telling lies. And, you can go deeper if you want to, but it's really being a giver of love. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Shelley. And no, I'm so sorry for your loss. Toby.
Well, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 20 some odd years, which most of y'all know. But, and I did homicides for the last 15 of that. If somebody's accused of a really terrible crime and you're meeting them for the first time, it's really naive to expect them to hold forth with the absolute truth. When I was a new lawyer, I used to think that, well, hey, I'm just trying to help you, like, why can't you just tell me the truth? Well, after a while, you learn that they're so frightened of everything. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid not to talk. They don't know. They don't have an accurate gauge of what it's safe to tell you, and so by now anymore, when somebody tells me a story, I'm like, okay, fine. And about 6 months later into the representation, we discuss the same thing again. And the story is totally different, and then maybe another 6 months. By the time you've represented them for a year, you might actually have a more or less accurate story. But these are people who've been abused by almost everyone, and they just cannot tell who it's safe to tell the truth to. So, and I, granted, they are, people who've killed people and stuff, but I think that it certainly happens with me. I'm not, hi, nice to meet you, Mr. So-and-so. Let me tell you my entire life story in about 5 minutes. It's not really safe for us to do that either. Most of us are pretty, before we overshare, we want to know who we're talking to and how we're going to be received. And I think that's just human nature.
Sure.
So I guess it doesn't surprise me when people don't tell me the absolute truth from the get-go. I'm like, we'll find out sooner or later.
Yeah. It's interesting, and we will look at the list a little bit later, perhaps, depending if we get there today or maybe next time. But I wonder how many of them revolve around this issue of safety. You talked about someone who's very, was accused of killing someone, possibly had killed someone, had been traumatized severely, and that's, maybe a year. And then Sue gave another example where for whatever reason, there was not a feeling of safety, in a situation where it's be kind of surprising. Why? What was that all about? Let's take it a little bit deeper. We'll bring the slides out now. I know you've missed them. Didn't seem to hurt our discussion too much for me to just ask the question. So I want to go to the four assumptions, which we've looked at many weeks. And the one that I want us to talk about today is this idea that we're driven between the conflict between the good inclination and the evil inclination. And the evil inclination is not a good description because part of it is just the safety impulse. It is from our deeper, animal brain where, it's about safety, it's about selfishness, it's where anger can come from. It's also where our drives, our ambitions come from, our sexual urges. The good inclination is much more relational. It is, where our compassion comes from. It's maybe where our curiosity comes from. It's where, what Susan was talking about, I'm want to be in relationship with this person. I'm close to them and it's painful that I can't trust what they say, but I'm going to stay in relationship with them. That's the good inclination. That's the how do I stay in relationship despite someone's faults. So I like maybe someone could unmute and read Rabbi Alan Liu's description of the Yetzer Hara.
I'll do it.
Yes, thank you, Nico.
The evil inclination is the tumultuous whirlwind of impulses and dysfunctions that prevent us from doing what we should be doing. Should I read the next one too?
Yeah.
Okay. We can strengthen the good inclination through spiritual work, meditation, and acts of loving kindness, such that over time we become better able to resist the seductive and seditious voice of the evil inclination.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to stop the share and then I'll paste this in the chat. And I want to start with that first part. The tumultuous whirlwind of impulses and dysfunctions that prevents us from doing what we should be doing. What do you think of that definition? And what is that? What do you think he's saying? Let's see, I got to go back to Zoom. We'll go to the chat.
Just to go back to what you were saying last time about the examples from Star Trek, I have an issue with the evil and good, and see it more in terms of like the base, as you were saying, animal impulses. Those are the whirlwind emotions and the need for safety, the impulses, the things that we don't control, and what the good inclination, I see it more as the more mature part of ourselves, not in terms only of us not being children, which are more prone to impulses and that kind of a thing, but also evolved in terms of non-animalistic and more cultured and reflection oriented and that kind of a thing.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
see it
thank
more
you.
in terms of animal, not animal, but base versus more involved than uh, good versus evil. I'm not fond of that good evil definition.
Yeah, I'm not either, and I use it because it's a term that's used
I
elsewhere.
understand that.
Um, but yeah, it's just kind of, you could think of it as that little voice whispering, "You're not safe. It's not safe to," and sometimes it's not safe, or you can't tell. Or like in Toby's example, where these people, the trauma has cranked up the evil inclination so much that it's just like, I am not, maybe in a year I'll trust you 80% about this one thing, you know. Um, and in other times it's just in a particular moment, maybe we're tired, whatever. It's just like, oh, I'm not feeling safe. I can't, like sometimes I'm I'm getting my hair cut and they haven't cut it short enough on the top. And they say, how's it look? And I'm like, looks great, thank you. And I walk out, I'm like, why was I dishonest? Why didn't I tell them, take another quarter inch off, Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, this, and I can sort of tell I'm just feeling a little bit off. Yeah, Sue, and then Wendy, and
Well, that happens to me too. And I was actually thinking the next time I go to the hair place, I'm actually finally going to tell her, please cut it a little shorter because I do the same thing. And I think I'm a people pleaser.
hmm,
And so I'm only going to say something if it really, really bothers me. And and maybe that's part of it. I mean, that's what I was thinking was that I want to tell her it looks great. She did a great job. And I'm not going to
mhm,
say anything unless it's something that I feel I need to say. So maybe
mhm,
there's, when do you need? And then I think about the truth and I think, is it necessary in that moment?
mhm,
Is it
right.
necessary for me to tell her? And, maybe at this point now, yeah, because it's been getting really long. But that's to me, that's the litmus test. I mean, first, is it kind? But it doesn't have to be kind, but is it necessary?
Okay, and I think that's a great rule for when we speak. But maybe let's bring in another soul trait. What about humility? What about occupying your own space? Are you advocating for yourself? Because is it necessary? No, but is it going to hurt the other person? Maybe we're afraid or evil inclination saying, "Oh, they're going to be devastated that you criticize them," as opposed to, "Oh, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, I want it to be just the way you want it." It doesn't matter to me whether it's this length or that length. I'm here to do it the way you want to do it.
I
Instead
like
of the
that. Thank you.
mean hair cutter. But yeah, so there's other things. Wendy.
Well, as a classic ruminator, I really can relate to the tumultuous whirlwind of impulses of dysfunctions preventing
Mhm,
me from doing things. Because just when one thing tells me, oh, you should do this, then I get this other impulse that says, no, because that's not safe or it's not time or just being unsure of myself. So I think it's kind of something that we can try to create a way to put those aside, not listen to those. It's kind of like the evil inclination having its own voice,
mm,
and me have to say nope, because truth is also very, very powerful and can be a really good thing. And so, if it is necessary, like you're saying, Sue, maybe it's not necessary, but if it is, that would be the time to use that truth. It could save lives. It could make it so somebody else doesn't get hurt. A lot of
mhm.
those things come in to play. But I love that tumultuous whirlwind. That I understand that.
Yeah, I'm going to put the second quote here as well because I totally hear you, Wendy. And there's another word. I mean, I just love Rabbi Ellen Lu's writing, but he says, we can resist the seductive and seditious voice of the evil inclination. it's not telling you to hurt somebody, and it sort of is under the guise of good, don't rock the boat, don't, you might hurt their feelings, or maybe I'm taking up too much time, or it all seems kind of reasonable, but I still feel a little ick. Like, yeah, but yeah, that's fine, but why didn't I do it? And so, and that's where I think it's kind of seductive and seditious, where,
Mhm.
yeah, Martin and then Susan.
So relating to haircuts, so I brought in last week a pair of pants to have them altered to the tailor, and I told him, they're still too short. Can you count them again?
Mhm.
Okay, good job.
Do you get the joke?
No.
They're still too short. Can you cut them again?
Oh, got it. Now I get it. Yeah. Okay, Dad. Good dad joke there. Um, Susan.
I'm thinking about, the evil inclination that makes us stop asking for what is appropriate to ask for. But more than 40 years ago, someone said to me with a lot of finger pointing, "You don't know the difference between assertiveness and aggression." So she was unkind, but then that question remained with me for a long time, so that I have thought about it a lot over time and come to realize that assertiveness, like saying I'd like my hair cut a little bit short, assertiveness is meant to be very respectful and loving. It honors the other person. It says, you're asking me that question because you really want to know the answer, and I'm going to give you the answer to that question in a loving and respectful way, as opposed to aggression, where you're saying, I never want to go back to that hairdresser. She doesn't do my hair the way I want her to. I'm joking, but you understand
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that it has helped me enormously as I've matured as an adult, gray hair, I'm pretty mature. But as I've matured in my adult world, to be able to say, oh, I can ask for what I want and I should tell you, and but I'm going to do it in the loving and respectful way that assertiveness demands, and also demands for me to say to myself, instead of saying to myself, oh, don't bother, don't ask, don't this, that I have to also do that for me, get me to ask and to say and to, you know, get what I deserve.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, and that's why I dye my hair a little bit gray, so I look a little more distinguished and, um, Aaron. Aaron, you're still on mute.
Okay, so I found a definition of truth that because I believe in a higher power and in the existence of God as a commingling of traits and not as anything related to human, this definition works for me. And it says truth is more than just facts and appearances. Truth is knowledge of what is right in God's sight rather than man's alone. So I think that relates somewhat to the good versus evil inclination. But also, as I listen to all of this, and my thoughts about truth are that truth really can't stand alone. For me, it's always couched or supported in one way or another by other soul traits. How, truth can be presented in more than one way. And so how we present truth, whether it's a brutal honesty or it's part omission, or let's say even from a doctor to a patient, if we feel that not revealing everything gives the patient a mindset that really could turn the corner and help them get better, I'm not sure that that's a lie. And I looked at the 9 different traits of lies, and yes, maybe there's some omission in there. But I also think that maybe it's just truth delivered at the right way at the right time. And so it doesn't all have to come out at once for someone, because maybe that's not the best way to use truth.
Mhm.
And so I really like the idea that it's not just facts and appearances, that for me, when it says it's what's right in God's sight rather than man's alone, means that reality can change over time. And it's not just a person to person, but it's the idea of saying, what should I say? How much should I say? When should I say it? How should I say it? That when it's right in sight, it's a much more holistic approach.
Yeah.
Rather than what's right just in man's alone, a personal view seems much more direct, pointed, and just kind of like a my way or the highway for the truth.
Yeah,
It seems
no,
very
I
black
think
and white
that's
that way.
yeah, I think that's a powerful framework, and that could be a good tool because ideally we want to practice, you know, all of these soul traits in relationship with one another. I mean, the most common example that's used in the Torah is chesed ve'emet, kindness and truth. But today we've also talked about humility and truth or compassion and truth, like with the relative who is untruthful, but we're still care about them, love them, and want to be in relationship. And so, and if it was just, to use your framework, the way I think about it is, well, if it was just a human truth, then it's like okay, you're a liar, I'm done. But if we're bringing the divine in, then suddenly there's a relational piece, a love, a caring, a compassion that is also a part of the picture. Shelley.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick. Martin, love the joke. Secondly, I'm a hairdresser, but I'm one of those hairdressers that I say, short enough, if it's not, please come back. And I had a client yesterday, did her hair the day before, and she goes, it's that side. And I'm like, I'm so glad I'm consistent. Sit down, I got 5 minutes. So,
Okay.
but I have a question. Fear. When did fear become such an ingrained belief system in humans? Because if you look at scripture, it says fear not. But yet we fear so much. We fear being truthful. And so I don't know if you can answer that question for me, Greg, if you have a, date when it was Adam and Eve, I don't know. But I'm trying to, just think to myself, why are we always so scared?
Sue, did you want to answer that? I was going to open it up to see if others.
Yeah, so I was with the same family and they were this 2-year-old. And I think people are feared. The example was this is a 2-year-old, right? She was fearful of being caught because she did something and she said, "Oh, mama did it." And she didn't tell the truth and then I thought about that. When you were saying where did this fear come from? People, I think one of the reasons is that they're fearful of being caught. And you see that in children when they don't fess up to something that they did. So that could be one reason to answer the question.
I just
Yes, Susan.
The answer is fear does start with Adam and Eve because Adam says she made me do it, and Eve says the snake made me do it. Right. So it's Adam and Eve. It starts from the beginning. And if Torah says don't fear, it means people fear. Like there would be no injunction against fear if we weren't fearful.
That's absolutely right. There's no commandment to like eat the delicious food. You know what I mean? It's like that one takes care of itself. Beth.
Fear, interesting. I have some new friends that I met at a book club at the library, and most of my friends are from synagogue. And getting to know some of these people, I find that many of their views are somewhat different than mine. In fact, a couple of them were talking about when is the next No Kings demonstration, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And in talking to them, I was making some comment about, well, I don't use my car very much, just like to the grocery store. And I was going to say, and synagogue, but I didn't. And that was because I was fearful. And part of me saying, well, okay, I'm protecting myself. But another part of me, um, I, I don't remember who said it, but the lady who read the quote, in Hashem's eyes, in God's eyes, we're supposed to be a witness to the people that, God exists. It's just saying that I go to synagogue would be saying, yes, I'm Jewish and I'm religious, and what's it to you?
Mm.
And I'm kind of sorry I didn't say that.
Yeah, it's also it's a good conversation to have, but it's also okay to protect yourself. And
I may get around to having it after I know him a few weeks more or a few months more.
yeah, so we'll hear from Karen, and then we're going to go to breakout rooms.
Okay. I'm actually sure that God created every creature with the ability to fear. And I don't know when that was done, but that seems to be one of our innate abilities for protection throughout life. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to add. I feel like that's a natural trait for every creature.
Yeah,
And
and
in
that's
Judaism, the study of Mussar, we have awe and fear as really the different sides of the same coin, and that they're very closely related. Anyway, that's all I want to share about fear.
thank you, Karen. And that was very close to what I was going to share. If I want to give the evolutionary biology or the neurobiology, we're going back tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of years, certainly hundreds of millions of years, because the fear neurons go back to the reptiles. Reptiles were like the dinosaurs. The fear neurons are 10 times faster than the non-fear neurons. So there is a neurobiology that gives us that predisposition. And like human babies are afraid of, you show them a picture of a snake or a rat, if they've never seen it, they become afraid. So there are certain things that we are hardwired, and that's understandable. If you're a little baby and there's a rat there, it could try to eat you. I mean, they are actually dangerous. So that's that. Let's get ready for breakout rooms. I'm going to add the text to the chat here rather than bring up the slide. So Rabbi Carol Glass taught that truth is the sole trait of inclusive, respectful regard for both what is apparent and what remains undetected, for both what is obvious as well as that which may elude us or be hidden from us. And so today, part of what we've been talking about is maybe the hidden influence of the evil inclination, making realizations about, oh, yeah, I told this lie, or I'm putting up with this person telling lies. So, how might knowing the truth about a personal weakness help you bring the good inclination into play to overcome it? There's this saying that's almost become a cliche, the truth will set you free. Well, is that true? And is like, I'm not talking about like someone telling you a truth you weren't ready to hear, but you make some realization about yourself. And in my weekly email, I said, we want to be careful not to use that not to let that turn into shame spiraling or getting ourselves, oh, I'm such a dumb or a bad person or whatever. How can we use it as a way to bring in the good inclination? Okay, so the breakout rooms are open. Hey, friends, welcome back. I thought it might be a juicy discussion, so I gave you a little extra time. So we don't have much left. We just are kind of in speed round here. But if people want to make a couple short comments about maybe an insight you had or ways that you can activate the good inclination to kind of counter the hostile impulse. Martin.
Yeah, I just find I'm gladly hearing. I'm gladly. I'm sorry. I'm hearing other voices. Can you hear me? I just heard some other voices, voiceover. I'm just, pleased to discover I'm becoming more of a habit of when there's a choice of good and evil. My habit is to go toward the good decisions right away. I'm very happy with that.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Inspire us all. Anyone else want to share anything? Yes, Karen.
One of our comments was looking at your list of 9 different categories for lies. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we called them 9 different categories of truths? In other words, a partial truth, which could be beneficial, might be the same as a lie of omission.
Right.
And maybe it's just the way we frame it.
Love that. Lisa, I saw your light go on. Did you want to add something?
I just think it's just very timely that I dropped into this call today. I don't know what, like I said, I've been getting your emails for several years, and I read the types of truth. I read that, and I thought, well, I'm going to try to get on this call, and it's like I said earlier. There's some things that are going on. There's a relationship that it's ending, and it's just caused me to be caused me to hear some truths that I had not heard or wanted to hear, maybe, and me to look deeper into me. That's all I can say right now.
Yeah, well, thank you, Lisa, and listening with an open heart. And I'm so glad that we could be here with you today. And if you're so moved, we'd love you to join us again.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. Well, it is time for us to close our sacred space for this week. So please close your eyes and relax. And take in a leisurely inhale through the nose and a leisurely exhale through the mouth. While there's many things that we don't know, I think there is one truth that's demonstrated from our experience today, which is that we are stronger in community. Well, that isn't true for every relationship or every person that we meet, but when we do find the group that we can opt into, that strengthens who we are, that helps us to be our best, that is an expression of divine truth for whatever that may mean to you. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, thank you so much for being here. If you have been watching the recording up until this point, thank you so much. You can certainly send me any questions you have at greg@americanmussar.com. Please feel free to like and subscribe to this video and this channel, and that will help encourage the social media algorithms to show it to other people. Have a great week.